AI. What's up with that? Is it cool? Is it based even? Or perhaps it is lame and cringe? Personally, I think he should have won the chip. That's a basketball joke because I watch that now. You cannot fathom how many hobbies I have. I collect them like infinity stones, so I'll be the prevailing spokesperson and just decide all of them suck. Artificial intelligence has long been a fascination of society. The idea of a machine being able to correctly and intuitively understand information and even run a whole house is extremely cool. Perhaps there is a day where more intelligent machines will lighten or remove the burden of labor, freeing society to complete things that are personally fulfilling for us, supported entirely by a government kept rich by ones and zeros. This is seen as an inevitability by many, which is what makes it so comedic when we are told that today the machines are here. Let them in. And let me tell you, I've checked my front door, around the corner, and even under my bed. They are not here. Now this would be very cool if it was considered the finish point of an economy. Well, no one has to work, and yet we still make money. Guess we have no reason but to provide for everyone. My hands are tied. Many proponents of the shift, however, mostly the ones on Twitter, which indicates nothing regarding their character, think that even with things the way that they are now, this drastic change should still happen, ignoring the part where you make sure people don't starve. Thank God! Soon we won't have to pay all those artists and writers whose work I enjoy. They don't evaporate. If you remove a job and don't create another one, where are they going to go? In a perfect future, if a job is replaced with AI, that employee should still be paid for the majority of their salary for the lifetime of that machine's implementation, while still being free to pursue other avenues or other interests, because it's not like a secret economic hack, it's just ethical and a good thing to do. The entire reason we pull resources in this thing called civilization. This all came to the public eye with tools like ChatGPT and other large language models, and dazzled the public with uncanny human-like responses and a seemingly infinite wealth of knowledge, which is when I reveal that this entire script has been written with ChatGPT. I have no idea why every news program ran that. The public suddenly has access to the broadest AI it's ever had, and you get it to generate Wikipedia synopsis with 16 commas and a lie. Don't get me wrong, it can be useful in ways other things aren't. Large language models can summarize certain pieces of media and describe major themes. It can give you templates, it can even search things specifically in a way that an old man would ask their email to Google something, please and thank you. It still has limits. There's been an active effort to implement large language models as a form of customer service or other minor roles that they are inherently suited towards. Unfortunately, the people making those decisions do not entirely understand that they actually suck and don't really work. And also, unlike real people that you pay money, they're actually not very dependable. Like a lawyer found out when he, according to himself, only verified whether or not the case that he was citing was real by asking ChatGPT. The machine gave him the source, and then he asked the source if that source was real. Now, I don't really understand how a courtroom works, I only ever spy on them, but I get the feeling that the standard of evidence is a bit higher than trust me. These models don't learn in the same way we do. They basically recognize and copy patterns. They can summarize and describe themes pretty well because it can kind of just take that from somewhere else. And even when it does, it can be surface deep, vague, and oftentimes just incorrect. For several years, I've had a Minolta Minoltina S. It's a rangefinder and it's never worked. It advances film fine until it meets any kind of resistance, at which point it starts slipping and fails to advance by an entire frame. This kills me inside, and I've been a changed man ever since I failed to fix this camera, but its issues are a good example of something that an AI would be specifically good to answer, and it does give good advice. Half of its response is trying to stop double exposure, and the other half thinks I'm trying to achieve it, making the entire answer completely useless. At this year's Google I/O, they showed AI integration into their search engine as a way to answer questions effectively without ever screening the results, because In an example regarding film cameras, it gave an answer that would immediately ruin the film by exposing it to sunlight. Google's standalone model, named Gemini, previously named Bard, which will eventually be mercy killed, all merged into Google Assistant with a completely different name, consistently lists sources citing them as something else because it knows what the name is and it just can't connect it to the link. The most apparent case of we don't let primary school kids grade their homework I've ever seen comes from Devin, an AI software engineer, and while I get the joke, don't name your machine Devin, it's not a very cool computer name. As a side note, why do all ethically challenged software engineers always call their machines something stupid or, like, literally Skynet with no in between? On the surface, Devin appears to make a large percentage of lower and mid-level coding tasks trivial, and in turn making a significant amount of jobs obsolete. Unfortunately, code is graded by how functional it is, not how cool you were making it. Otherwise, I would have a different career path. Full credit to Internet of Bugs for this information. I don't have the bandwidth in my life to fully learn how to code enough to do this myself, and his video is extremely interesting and I got all of it from there, so watch it if you want. To simplify, in this video, Devin is shown doing something very specific from a very specific source, being this GitHub repo. And somehow, it still finds a way to lie. It reports multiple errors in separate parts of the code and then fixes them for your convenience, except those files do not exist in the repo and Devin just made them up with the bad code and then fixed it. It also ignored extremely obvious instructions written in plain text.
I don't think the person that wrote this repository, detecting road damage, I don't think the person that wrote that could have made it any easier to understand how we were supposed to use it. But Devin didn't seem to be able to figure that out.
And then potentially took way too long to complete the task. And I should point out, this is not a problem with Devin, it is a problem with almost all text-generating AI. Currently, their existence requires them to engage in behavior that makes them hallucinate because they are incapable of knowing the difference. It is still something that holds them back from being genuinely useful because despite their ads, you cannot trust their answers and you won't listen to them. But somehow, there are zealots that want to entrust every corner of the computing world to a monkey on a typewriter that hallucinates. This is also a problem with the glut of underbaked products like the Humane AI pin, which seems to be named as a way to trick me to trust it. Nice try, buddy, but that's a machine. Nothing gets past these old peepers. This received significant press coverage because it is objectively an absolutely extremely cool product, which is a shame because it doesn't exist and no one really ever got it. Simply like tapping your chest and pointing at something, saying, what, or how much, or obliterate him, is like an extremely cool thing to do. It's just kind of sucked at doing that. Just having something see what you see adds an insane level of real-time context that is so cool, but it lies a lot and really slowly. Breaking it down quickly, in their promotional video, it calculates the protein in a handful of almonds incorrectly. It states the next time an eclipse will be visible in a specific location, which was not correct. And apparently, it purchased something without giving important information, all the while taking several agonizingly quiet seconds to accomplish. Mind you, they actually seem to have re-uploaded this video with vague answers to make it more correct, but still not entirely right. Most marketing videos have situations where the product's more effective than it generally is, and there was a question as to why the Humane pin didn't receive that treatment until, it was released, and they were doing that. The product is worse. It got easily verifiable information completely incorrect, as in things that you can Google and yet it took longer to do so. The laser display is pretty cool, but limited because of a physics thing that I'll pretend I don't know so the big kids at school won't bully me. I'm like a sparrow, I'm more frail and small. The only thing that could possibly help me is subscribing or liking the video. Subscribe! This all assumes that it has service because it doesn't pair to your phone, it actually requires its own SIM card for service and a monthly subscription, giving the AI assistant an inherent friction to adding it to your life. Marques Brownlee raises this in his video as like a minor point, but I feel like it's fairly applicable to all of the revolutionary implementations of AI, being that at some point it is just easier, quicker, and better to do things yourself. Put a pin in that statement, it's going to come back. It took longer for the Humane pin to say that this was a Cybertruck than just using Google Lens, which does the exact same thing, partly assisted with an AI. This is the same for another AI assistant that requires specific hardware, does not pair with your phone, heralded by some as the future, was rushed to market to beat a competitor, and doesn't work well enough not to question why this isn't just an app. Which, hilariously, it actually kind of is. The Rabbit R1 is a device that you're forced to buy to interact with their model. It's essentially just a bad phone. Dave 2D compiled a list of things he would want to change about the device, and it basically just turns the thing into a second phone, except you can't do anything that the phone can. Despite being an AI assistant, in the words of Marquez, it can't record videos, can't record photos, can't send emails, there's no calendar built in. Which really does make it like an orange box with fun little toggles and a camera that gets things wrong. The simple fact is, currently, giving an AI too much agency creates so much friction in doing basic tasks. Using it to correct grammar in your story? It's a pretty good use case. Using it to write the story is a complete disaster. They strike me as the first almost grifts in the AI space, as the Rabbit R1 app being run on a phone proved that there isn't really a good reason to require buying the machinery other than the fact it is more beneficial to the people selling it, and the Humane pin is $600 odd US. Why? Don't get me wrong, the Rabbit R1 is only about $200 US with no subscription, and both of these products work, unlike the rounded to a nearest whole number 100% of cryptocurrency, but it's a trend I don't think anyone wants to see continue. Finally, we have AI image generation, and I'm not calling it art. Now, I've never actually interacted with image generation, mostly because it's completely pointless for 99% of people on the planet, but I decided for the video it's probably worth taking a look at seriously, with my serious goggles, just to find limitations, and wow, that was quick. This perhaps makes me one of the more educated personalities that have spoken against AI image generation and its place in pop culture, which is, in my mind, qualifying enough to say that it has, in some ways, been unjustly demonized by people that do not understand it. But it should still be burnt, because there is so much more that you don't know. My God! Keep in mind that for the rest of the video, no matter what I say, no matter what you think I mean, the moment society collectively decides to storm the streets in protest, my torch will have been extinguished and relit 1,000 times over. Image generation is another form of AI that gets constantly hyped up by insufferable people that spent 30 minutes on Midjourney and were convinced that, yeah, this thing will individually find every artist on the planet and just put them in jail. In reality, it is surprisingly challenging to get images that are consistent, let alone consistently legible, not to mention something that actually looks like you intended, or really an image that has a reason to exist. The amount of tweets I have seen from people who like using the word FUD say, "Wow, this is amazing, and it's getting better every day. This is going to replace traditional art any day now." Dude, one of the biggest issues that is still plaguing things that Stable Diffusion 3.0 is trying to fix is that it can't make hands. Like, it can't do hands. The thing that is on people. While digging through the trenches, I know I'm so brave, I found a lot of my preconceived notions were challenged, changed even. I believe that there was a glimmer of goodness in this, and that there was a world where it could be used ethically, rewardingly, for everyone. It's just not the one we're living in, and it literally never will be. I say this mostly seriously. We need to start designing a void prison for AI image generation, like now. Like this instant, start now. In its rawest form, there is truly nothing wrong with it. You can make models based off real life or your own creation, something that doesn't just blatantly infringe copyright, and build it for your own specific needs. Think of it like a lead deposit. Alone in the world, a deposit of lead has no intention or existence on a moral spectrum. There are many ways you can use lead poorly. Paint or pipes are good examples of this, but there are use cases where lead is nichely applicable and ethically good. It just so happens that the people that found this lead, really liked this lead, decided to shave it off and sprinkle it into cereal. Not because they have grand plans, they just don't like people. Like, why? Not all AI generation is stealing. There are considerable efforts by some to detach its usage from that. And there is, however, so many more people specifically trying to steal art and styles. There are people who interact with this technology solely for the purpose of committing copyright theft. I cannot stress that enough. Even if you take away the inherent stealing of using other people's art, scraping it from the internet to train a model, there are people out there specifically trying to copy specific artists' styles for their own benefit. There's glimmers of goodness, like the fact that images retain their workflows so you can import them and see the settings. People are generally open to sharing tips, and then people use those tips to create deepfakes or just spread misinformation by faking history. What? It's just poison. They're just poisoning you. Even if none of the models used stolen art or scraped anything, which would beat the all AI image generation is stealing claim, even then, there are people that specifically use it to steal people's art, to fake history, to deepfake things, to make people say what they didn't. It is such a powerfully bad tool, it probably needs to be illegal. Basically, don't die on this hill, go die on that hill. All your friends are there, there's a castle, it's defendable, it's a way better hill. So yes, while some people will say that not all image generation is stealing, and they are technically correct. Wow, what a brave stance. Oh my god, how people use this stuff is so much worse and so much more intentional. Oh my god, burn this to the ground, please. Perhaps what sticks out to me most while sitting in this kind of area is finding out how how not interested anyone is in actually making art. The bar for entry, while confusing, is not exactly very crazy, but can quickly expand into a Lovecraftian spreadsheet while you're not looking. There's thousands of different ways to influence the image created, each with their own little toggles, and they name things like B-box detector and mask hint crop in 25,000 different nodes that aren't compatible with each other, and if you choose the wrong one, it just explodes. But the majority of advocates don't want to do this. They don't want to learn to do all this weird dorky stuff. They don't want to use custom tools or train their own models on their artwork. They don't want to go out of their way to try and avoid accidentally stealing someone's work. They just want to put the words in and have something nice come out of it. The very profile of the people that use this is perhaps the biggest reason as to why I don't think any of this is worth saving. Generating images doesn't exactly work the way you would think. You very much describe very literally what is in the final image. If you want the image to have a sword partly out of frame, you need to describe exactly what parts are in the frame, and that's it. Even then, it's less describing and more explaining something to somebody else who then does it instead of you. There's always a level of distance between you and the output. It never feels like you control the machine, more like you cut off its escape routes until it goes the way that you want it to. It's a process where true, genuine artistic expression, getting what you dream of onto a page, can only be done at the highest level of use. I can create all these inputs and reference images to get exactly what I want, the field of view, exactly the way the shadows fall, the color of the iris, the sparkling, the lens flares, but you could just let the machine do it for you and then it doesn't matter. This inherently attracts a demographic of people who do not have much experience with art. They don't understand the ethics of it, and they believe that art is just something that looks good. This is most apparent in its simplest form with community-developed lores. It's like a plugin that's specifically trained to allow characters or styles to be implemented into the image at a smaller file size we don't have time, that are specifically made to replicate things that are trivially easy to do with traditional photo manipulation. There are several lores that attempt to recreate comic paneling, manga pages, or text boxes, even though AI images struggle with creating comprehensibly written text and lack the ability to maintain consistent styles across two images, let alone have the artistic ability to convey a story. What you choose to have in those panels, or how big they are and where the text sits, is still a human part of the process, and one that is extremely easy to do by just manually compiling different images. It is faster, more efficient, a better example of your actual artistic intention, all the while looking better than just getting the machine to do it, and yet that's what people do because they don't have any artistic intention. It speaks to a lack of care or lack of ability to conceptualize a way to consistently and comprehensively relay a story with personalized flair. Probably both. Imagine looking at a Garfield strip and lacking the ability to figure out, or the lack of desire to actually physically make the thing. Mind you, you have all 3 images, but putting them in a row is too much for you. And not everyone in the community is like that. Many implement the tools for incredibly interesting ways. Upscaling, photo restoration, game development, normal mapping, and video pre-production are all things that image generation effectively and ethically benefits. It's just that the easiest thing to do with it, and what everyone wants the machine to do, is intentionally steal art. The more I look into it, the more I feel like it's just the Iron Giant, but the humans and the giant want the giant to be the big guy that blows stuff up. If image generation somehow gets outlawed, I'll shed a single tear for the loss of what could have been and technology developed, and then feel the overpowering warmth from the inner hearth that comes from the knowledge that the world is absolutely a better place. It's pretty depressing as well, because AI images are one of the more refined avenues of artificial intelligence, so it could be interpreted as a precursor to an AI future, and it's just led all the way down. And lastly, as an appendix, there are face replacement and voice cloning technologies, which are very cool and have no use cases that I like. It's always either ghoulish, like replacing someone with a deceased actor, or getting random celebrities to voice your TikTok trivia page. Not exactly company I intend to keep. And that's it for this video. My legs hurt from standing for so long. I'm so brave. I'm a big boy. Like and subscribe. Thanks to the fellas who have been supporting me. I'm not entirely sure what the next video will be on. I had this one written beforehand, cut partially, and then I did the other. You know how it works. You know how timing works. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Have a good one. All right.